You know, funny thing about the mind, how a smell or a sound can just whisk you right back. The other morning, I was sitting out on the porch, early, sun just peeing through the mold maple trees in the air. Well, it had that kind of cool dampness, like after a rain. Brought me straight back to my granddad's place. Funny, huh? Just that smell, like old wood and wet earth. And there I was, a young buck again, poking around in that attic, oh his. Reckon I hadn't thought about that watch in years, but there it was, clear as day in my mind. And it's something, how a thing like that can come out of nowhere and sit heavy on ya, like it's got its own weight. Makes you think, maybe it's time to tell that story. Been sitting quiet in my heart too long now. Well, I reckon you folks got a minute or two, so pour yourself a coffee or what have ya, and settle in. Oh, and, if you feel like it, don't be shy now, leave me a little comment, or click that like thing, let an fella know you're listening. Maybe even hit that subscribe deal, helps keep me going, you know. Anyhow, where was I? Oh yeah, that watch. See, this goes back. Oh, must have been 82, summer, hot one that year. I was just a young man then, barely starting out, working down at the hardware store, helping Mom with the place after Pop passed. Grandpa, well, he'd been gone a year or so by then. We were clearing out some of his things. Old house, 2-story job out on Mill Creek Road. You know the kind of place. White paint all chipped up, screen door that creaked loud enough to wake the dead. Smelled like pipe tobacco, old leather, books, and something else, a sort of warmth, if you get what I mean. Place had soul. Grandpa was, well, he was a man of few words. But when he spoke, you listened. Worked the railroad near 40 years. Big hands, thick fingers, always smelled faintly of machine oil in aftershave. I'd spent many an afternoon at that house as a boy, watching him work at his bench, listening to the soft ticking of the old mantel clock. I always knew there was something up in that attic, this big wooden chest, heavy iron lock on it. Grandpa never talked about it much. Just old keepsakes, son, he'd say. But after he passed, well, we figured it was time to have a look. Now, why the swaying on me today? I can't rightly say. Maybe it's the years catching up. Maybe it's just that morning breeze bringing it all back. Or maybe some stories just need telling sooner or later. And this one, well, it stayed with me all these years. Not just what that watch turned out to be, but what it meant, what it still means. Funny how a little thing, just gears in, hands in brass, can hold so much memory. So, if you're willing, come along with me for a spell. Let me tell ya about that day, about that pocket watch, and maybe, just maybe, you'll see why it still ticks in my heart. Well now, let me take you back a bit, back to when I was just a young'un, growing up right here in that little town of mine, tucked away in Indiana. It was a simpler time, you know. Summer days stretched out long and lazy, full of cicadas singing in the heat, and the smell of fresh-cut hay floating through the air. I remember walking down those dusty roads barefoot, grass tickling my ankles with the sun beating down, making the sweat roll off my brow. Folks knew each other by name. We didn't have no fancy gadgets or big city bus, but we had heart, had our little traditions too. Sunday dinners with the whole king gathered round the table. Ma's homemade apple pie bikini in the oven, Grandpa telling one of his stories with that slow, gravelly voice of his. Wife moved steady, like the gentle roll of the creek just beyond our farm. There was a rhythm to it, slow and sure, like a song you don't forget. Back then, I was just a boy, shy maybe, but full o' dreams bigger than the cornfields that stretched for miles. I always thought that kindness was the backbone of this world. I believe people came back around, that no matter what, folks looked out for each other. Might sound old-fashioned now, but that's just how it was. I figured that a good handshake meant something, and that a man's word was his bond. I was a simple kid, sure, but I dreamed of making something of myself, helping Ma and Pa, maybe even getting out of that town one day to see what the world looked like beyond the river. I remember those evenings sitting on the porch swing, watching the fireflies blinking like tiny stars and wondering what lay ahead. The world felt big and full of possibilities, even if the days around me were small and quiet. I was just starting to find my place, getting my hands dirty working on the farm, learning how to fix things, and looking up to my granddad, who was steady as an old oak tree, strong, dependable, and full of stories about days gone by. He never rushed things, always took his time, and I reckon it taught me more than he knew. You know, I was a young man when that chest, the one I told you about, started to mean something more than just a box of old junk. That watch inside, it wasn't just a keepsake, it was a piece of the past that connected me to those simple days, to the people who shaped me, to the values I grew up with. I guess, in a way, that old watch held the quiet strength of my granddad, and the hope of a boy who believed in good things. I was married then, newly so, my sweet wife, Mary. She had this laugh that could light up a room in a heart bigger than this town. We had plans, dreams that seemed as bright as the morning sun. But life has a way of testing you. We worked hard, saved every penny, and held on tight to each other. I always told her, Mary, no matter what comes, we got each other, and that's enough. That was my promise, a promise made in the quiet moments between chores and long days. Back in those days, I thought the world was steady, predictable. I thought the past was behind us, and the future was just a matter of keeping on. But that watch, tucked away in that chest, reminded me that the past never really leaves you. It's always there, in the ticking of the seconds, in the stories passed down, in the memories you hold close. I suppose that's why it still means so much to me today. It's a reminder of where I came from, and of all the folks who made me who I am. So that's the start of it all, a boy with big dreams, a man finding his way, and a family bound by love and quiet strength. Those were the days that shaped me, and that little watch holds a piece of that world, a world I carry in my heart, always. Well now, I gotta tell ya about the day something new walked right into my world, the kind of day that don't quite feel real till you live it. It was the summer of '81, I reckon. I was just a young man, working those long shifts at the hardware store, sweating in that thick Indiana heat. Life was steady, predictable, like the slow turn of the seasons. But then came a moment that changed the rhythm of my days. It started with a letter, just one of those plain envelopes with a neat handwritten on it. I found it tucked in the back of that old chest we'd been clearing out, the one Grandpa left behind. I wasn't expecting much, but something about that envelope made my heart skip a beat. Maybe it was the way the paper felt, thin and delicate, like a whisper from the past. When I opened it, I didn't know then how much that piece of paper would turn my world upside down. Inside was a note from a woman named Eleanor, a name I hadn't heard since childhood. She'd been my first crush, back when we were just kids running barefoot through the cornfields, chasing fireflies on summer nights. The letter said she'd be passing through town, looking to reconnect after all these years. I read it over and over, and I swear, I could feel my heart pounding faster than a freight train. I couldn't quite explain it back then, that sudden rush, that mix of excitement and nervousness, like a fire flickering to life in a cold hearth. I remember sitting there on the porch, watching the sun dip low, wondering if maybe this was the start of something new or just a ghost from the past playing tricks on me. But Eleanor, she was different. She wasn't just a memory, she was real, with a smile that could light up the darkest days and eyes full of stories yet to be told. That summer, I found myself thinking about her more than I ever thought I would. I caught myself daydreaming at work, imagining what it'd be like to see her again, to hear her laugh, to talk about the years we'd missed. It was like the whole world shifted just a little, leaving me both eager and a bit afraid. 'Cause you see, when you're young, you don't always know what to do with a feeling like that. It's powerful and strange, like nothing you've ever known before. Alongside that letter, there was something else in the chest, a small, worn photograph of Grandpa with Eleanor's father, both of them grinning wide, arms slung round each other like brothers. That struck me too, made me realize this wasn't just a random happening. There was history here, ties that ran deep, threading through my family and hers, through time itself. I took that as a sign, maybe a nudge from fate, telling me to hold on tight and see where this road might lead. It was a moment full of hope, but also uncertainty. I was standing at the edge of something bigger than myself, and all I could do was take a deep breath and step forward. Looking back now, I see how that letter, that one unexpected thing, opened a door. It set in motion a chain of memories, discoveries, and a journey that would bring me closer to who I was meant to be. And that pocket watch, well, it was there through it all, ticking steady, a reminder that time keeps moving, whether we're ready or not. So yeah, that summer of '81. That letter from Eleanor, it changed everything. I didn't know it then, but my heart already knew something new was coming, and I was ready to meet it head on. Well, I'll be honest with you, life ain't always as kind as we'd like it to be. That summer, with that letter from Eleanor burning fresh in my mind, things started to get a little more complicated than I'd imagined. You see, not everyone in my life was thrilled about the idea of me reconnecting with someone from the past, especially someone like Eleanor. Folks in that small town, they got their ways, their judgments, and sometimes they just don't take kindly to change. My pa, God rest his soul, he wasn't one for talking much, but his look said it all when I told him about the letter. A hard man, set in his ways, he figured some things ought to stay buried. Why stir up the past? He asked, voice low but firm. Ain't no need for all that mess. And honestly, that hit me harder than I thought it would. Here I was, hoping to find a little light, and instead, I felt a shadow creeping in. That wasn't the only thing weighing on me. Mary, my sweet Mary, she was kind and strong, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She didn't say it outright, but I knew she feared the unknown. Maybe she thought the past was a threat to the life we were building together. I loved her dearly, but I also felt pulled in two directions, like a leaf caught in a breeze, unsure which way to fall. Inside, I was battling all sorts of feelings I didn't have the words for back then. Anger at the walls folks put up, fear that maybe I was making a mistake, shame for wanting something that didn't fit the neat picture everyone expected. I remember nights laying awake, the silence heavy round me, my mind racing, wondering if I was strong enough to face what was coming. At work, things got tense too. Small towns are funny that way, news travels fast and opinions even faster. Some neighbors whispered behind my back. Others gave me that sideways glance like I was carrying a secret I shouldn't have. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying not to lose my balance, but the weight of it all was wearing me down. The chest in the attic, with that watch inside, became my quiet refuge. When the world felt too loud, I'd sneak up there, hold that old timepiece in my hands, and just breathe. It reminded me of Grandpa's steady hands, the calm he carried through any storm. It was a piece of the past that somehow kept me grounded when everything else felt uncertain. But the hardest part, the doubt gnawing at me, was I betraying the life I'd built? Was I letting go of the promises I made to Mary, to my family? I reckon every man faces a moment like that, when the road ahead splits, and you gotta choose which way to go, not knowing where it might lead. In the end, there wasn't a clear answer, no easy fix. Just a whole lot of heartache and a quiet strength finding its way through the cracks. I learned that life don't give us many clear paths. Sometimes we gotta make our own, even if it means walking through the dark for a while. So, yeah, that summer was tough, but it was also real. And it taught me that being true to yourself, even when it's hard, is the only way to keep moving forward. I remember that day like it was etched into the very air around me. It was late autumn, leaves turning gold and red, swirling down the streets of our little town like forgotten memories. The kind of day that feels both beautiful and heavy, like the world's holding its breath. I was standing there, holding that old pocket watch, the one from Grandpa's chest, in my hand, and for a moment, time itself seemed to stop. I swear, I could hear nothing but the steady ticking of that watch, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. See, that day brought me something I never expected. It was the kind of moment that shakes your soul to its core and leaves you wondering if you'll ever be the same again. Mary, my Mary, she was gone. Not just gone out to the store or working late, but gone for good. A sudden illness took her away quicker than anyone could have imagined. I remember feeling like the ground beneath me just gave way, like I was falling through a dark, endless tunnel with no light to guide me. The days that followed were a blur. Folks came by with casseroles and kind words, but none of it could patch the hole in my heart. I found myself sitting alone in the creaky old house, the walls echoing with silence. I'd look at that watch and think, Grandpa's hands held this steady through wars and hard times. How come I can't hold myself together now? There was a moment, I swear it, when I thought the watch had stopped ticking. Time froze. Everything froze. It was like the world pressed pause on me, leaving me stranded in grief and disbelief. I'd never felt so lost, so broken. The weight of loneliness was a heavy cloak wrapped tight round my shoulders. That's when I realized something important, though, something I didn't fully understand till later. Losing Mary wasn't just taking her away from me, it was taking a piece of the future we dreamed about together. I lost the hope I'd clung to, the light that kept me moving forward. For a while, I thought maybe it was easier to just give up, to let the world's sadness swallow me whole. But then, as I sat there with that watch in my hand, I remembered Grandpa's voice, steady, calm, filled with quiet wisdom. He'd said once, "Time don't heal all wounds, but it teaches us how to carry 'em." I didn't want to carry this weight anymore. I wanted to put it down, but that wasn't how life worked. I had to find a way to keep ticking, just like that watch. That day changed me forever. It stripped away the illusions I'd held onto, showed me the fragility of all we think we control. It made me realize that some losses carve deep canyons in your soul, but those canyons can hold memories, too. Beautiful, painful, real memories that shape who you are. I was broken, yes, but I also found a stubborn piece of myself that refused to be swallowed by the dark. A piece that whispered, "Keep going." For Mary, for Grandpa, for the boy who believed in kindness. The pocket watch, it became more than a family heirloom. It was a symbol of time lost, time found, and time still left to live. So there I was, standing in that quiet house, feeling the weight of loss and the pull of hope all at once. The turning point wasn't just the loss itself, but what I chose to do with that loss. I could have let it break me. Instead, I chose to carry it, with all its sharp edges and shadows, because that's what life asked of me. And from that day forward, I never looked at that watch the same way again. It ticked with the heartbeat of all those who came before me, and all those I loved and lost. It reminded me that time keeps moving, whether we're ready or not. And sometimes, the hardest thing in the world is to keep moving with it. After Mary was gone, the house felt different, colder somehow, like the warmth had slipped right through the cracks in the walls and taken with it the laughter and light that used to fill every room. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, but the heaviness in my chest never quite lifted. It was like carrying a shadow that followed me everywhere, quiet but persistent. I'd wake up in the morning, and the first thing I'd feel was that empty space beside me, where she used to be. The silence in the house was deafening. I found myself retreating from folks, from the world even. The neighbors would stop by, off-air in kind words and casseroles, but it felt like I was just a ghost walking through my own life. I'd sit for hours in that old chair by the window, watching the seasons change outside, but feeling frozen in time myself. The world kept churning, but I was stuck, trying to make sense of a life that had suddenly lost its rhythm. My faith, well, it took a hit, that's for sure. I'd grown up believing in the goodness of people, in the kindness that holds us together. But when someone you love just disappears, leaving behind a silence so loud it drowns out everything else, it shakes that belief to its core. I found myself questioning everything, why things happen, why pain is part of the story, and whether there was any meaning left in the pieces. There were days I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again. The strength I thought I had seemed to slip through my fingers like sand. I wasn't the same man who had held that watch so tightly in his hand, who dreamed of a future full of hope and love. I was someone new, quieter, more cautious, carrying scars no one could see. That pocket watch, still there on the mantel, was a reminder of all that was lost and all that remained. Sometimes I'd wind it up just to hear that ticking, a small anchor in the endless sea of grief. It was a piece of Grandpa's world, a steady heartbeat in the silence. And maybe, just maybe, it was a sign that life goes on, even when it feels like it stopped. I started taking small steps forward, helping out around the house, tending to the garden, slow and steady. Nothing big, but enough to remind me that there was still some light left inside. I learned that grief isn't a straight road. It twists and turns, comes and goes like the wind through the trees. And sometimes it's okay to just sit in the quiet and let it be. The world I knew before had changed, and so had I. But underneath it all, that flicker of hope was still burning, a quiet promise that someday the pieces might come back together. I held on to that as tight as I held onto the watch, waiting for the day when the silence would finally start to soften. After months of walking through that heavy fog of loss, something shifted inside me. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, like the gentle stirring of a breeze through bare branches. It wasn't a grand moment, no sudden epiphany, but a quiet nudge, a tiny spark that started to glow in the back of my mind. One afternoon, I was down at the local diner, sipping on my usual black coffee, when I noticed a young man sitting alone at the counter. Looked a bit lost, like he didn't quite belong, hands trembling as he fumbled with a worn-out notebook. Something about him reminded me of my own younger self, the dreams and doubts wrapped up in a restless heart. I found myself starting a conversation, asking him about his story. Turns out, he was new in town, trying to get back on his feet after some hard knocks. We talked about work, about dreams, about the small things that keep a man going. And just like that, helping him gave me a little piece of something I thought I'd lost, a sense of purpose. It was like I'd been wandering through a long winter, and that moment was the first hint of spring. That day, I took a walk down by the creek, the same one near Grandpa's old farm. The sun was warm on my face, the air filled with the scent of pine and fresh earth. I held that old pocket watch in my hand, winding it up gently. The steady ticking was like a heartbeat connecting me to the past, in the future, reminding me that time, no matter how hard it hits us, keeps on moving. And maybe, so could I. I started taking small steps, helping Mary's sister with her garden, fixing fences for neighbors, even joining a book club down at the library. Not 'cause I was looking for something big or life-changing, but 'cause I was ready to feel the world again, to open a door that had been closed too long. It wasn't always easy. There were days when the weight of the past pulled me back, but I found comfort in these little acts of connection. Slowly, a new kind of hope took root. Not the bright, blazing fire of youth, but a steady glow, a careful optimism that maybe, just maybe, life had more to offer. I realized that even after the darkest storms, there's a chance to find new paths, new joys, new reasons to keep ticking. That old watch, it stayed with me, a reminder of where I'd been and where I could still go. It's funny how a small thing can carry so much meaning, how it can hold the weight of loss and the promise of new beginnings all at once. So here I am now, with a heart a little softer, a spirit a little lighter, ready to see what the next chapter brings. And I tell ya, friend, sometimes all it takes is a little spark, a moment, a smile, a helping hand, to remind you that life keeps moving, and so should we. It's funny how the hardest battles we fight aren't the ones out loud. They're the quiet ones inside, the ones no one else can see. For a long time after Mary was gone, I carried that weight like it was a stone tied to my chest. I held on to the past tight, clutching memories like they were all I had left. But one evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills and the house was bathed in that soft, golden light, I found myself standing in front of the old chest, Grandpa's chest, with that pocket watch resting on top. I looked at it for a long while. That watch had been through so much, carried the hands of time through wars, through love, through loss. And there I was, still stuck in the past, letting it hold me back. I realized then that if I wanted to honor those who came before me, and those I'd lost, I had to let go of the hurt that kept me chained. Not forget, mind you, that's impossible, but forgive myself. Forgive life for its harsh turns. And most importantly, forgive the part of me that wanted to stay in that dark place. I made a decision that night. I didn't throw the watch away. It wasn't about that. It was about carrying it differently. I chose to wear it, to keep it close, not as a burden, but as a reminder. A reminder that time moves forward, and so must I. I told myself, I'm gonna live my days without bitterness, without hanging on to regrets. I'm gonna live fully for Mary, for Grandpa, and for me. It wasn't easy, and it sure didn't happen overnight. But that choice, oh, that choice, it set me free in a way I hadn't felt in years. After that, things started shifting. I found myself opening the door a little wider to the world. I reconnected with old friends, started visiting the community center again, and even began writing letters to Eleanor, letters I'd been too scared to send before. Each word was like taking a step out of the shadow and into the light. I wasn't perfect. I stumbled plenty, but I kept moving. That watch ticked on through it all, steady as ever. It became a symbol of resilience, of love that doesn't die, and of the courage it takes to keep living after loss. And I think that's what matters most, that we keep our hearts open, even when it feels like the world's closed in tight. So here I am, friend, sitting on my porch, watching hand, feeling the warmth of the sun and the cool breeze at the same time. I've learned that life's a journey full of ups and downs, and that sometimes the greatest strength is found in acceptance. I chose to live on, without regrets, without chains, just forward, step by step, day by day. And that, well, that's enough for me. You know, after all these years, after the highs and lows, the losses and the little victories, I've come to understand something that's simple, yet so easy to overlook. Life, well, it ain't about the things we hold in our hands, or the plans we make, or even the dreams we chase. It's about the stories we carry, the memories we make, and the love we leave behind. That old pocket watch, the one from Grandpa's chest, taught me that. It's not the gold or the rarity that makes it precious, it's the history wrapped up in it, the hands that wounded, the moments it ticked through. I've learned that time is a funny thing. It can heal wounds, sure, but it also reminds us that some scars stay with us, shaping who we are. And that's all right. Those scars hold lessons, wisdom, and a kind of beauty you don't see at first glance. I used to think I needed to hold on to the past tightly, keep it safe, like it was a treasure locked away. But now I see it's more like a gentle companion, walking beside you, not weighing you down, but reminding you where you've been, and guiding you to where you're going. Maybe the hardest thing I've come to understand is that waiting for the perfect time, for the pain to fade, for life to make sense. Well, sometimes it keeps us stuck. I spent years waiting, holding on to hurt and fear, afraid to move forward. But life doesn't wait for us to be ready. It moves on with or without us. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop waiting and start living. I hope folks listening to this know they ain't alone in their struggles. We all carry stories like mine, shadows and light mixed together. But there's strength in that mix, a strength that comes from choosing to keep going, to keep loving, even when it's hard. You don't have to have it all figured out. Heck, I sure don't. But if there's one thing I can pass along, it's this. Don't be afraid to carry your story with you, to share it, and to let it teach you how to live a little freer, a little kinder. So maybe it's time for you, for me, for all of us, to stop waiting for some perfect moment or clear sign. Maybe it's time to open the chest of memories, to win that old watch in our hands, and to step forward, one slow, steady tick at a time. Because in the end, that's what life's really about, cherishing the moments, learning from the past, and finding the courage to keep moving forward with an open heart. Well now, here we are at the end of this little journey I've been sharing with you. I reckon I've told you more than just a story about an old pocket watch for days long gone. This here's a tale about life, its twists and turns, the love and loss that shape us, and the memories that carry us through. I hope, somehow, it's touched a chord deep inside you, like the gentle ticking of that watch reminding us all that time keeps on moving, and so must we. You know, I often find myself wondering, as I sit here with this old watch in my hand, what it really means for something to come back around. Is it fate? Is it chance? Or maybe it's just the way life whispers to us through the years, telling stories we thought were finished but never really end. And it makes me ask, what about you? Do you believe that true love, the kind that leaves a mark on your soul, is meant to return? That maybe, no matter how far time stretches or how much we change, some bonds hold strong, waiting to be found again. This story isn't just about what happened in the past. It's about today and tomorrow and the moments we have right now. It's about the people we carry in our hearts, the lessons we learn, and the hope that never quite fades. I hope it reminds you that no matter what you're holding on to or what you're trying to let go, there's always a chance to find peace, to find love, and to find yourself again. Sometimes, when the evening settles in and the world gets quiet, I swear I can feel her presence, Mary's laughter, soft and warm like a breeze through the trees. Sometimes, I think that old watch ticks not just with the time we measure, but with the memories that never really leave us. Maybe she remembers. Maybe, in some small way, she's still here, walking beside me, guiding me forward. So I leave you with this. Hold close the stories that shape you, the love that lifts you, and the hope that keeps you ticking. And ask yourself, what's the one thing you've been waiting to find again? Maybe it's time to open that door, win that watch, and step forward with a heart ready to live. Thank you for listening, friend. I hope this tale stays with you like a soft melody long after the last tick. Until we meet again, take care of yourself, and remember, time is precious, but love is timeless.